Dr. Raja and Nima. Aris, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, Dr. Thakkar. How are you?
I'm fine.
Hi, Aris. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Raja. How are you?
Good. Good to see you again after a long time.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too.
Are you in Hyderabad now, or
I was actually traveling for a few weeks. But now I'm in Bangalore. I'm sorry, back in Hyderabad. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Nice. We are waiting to host you in LV Prasad Institute. Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Raja, I didn't get
I
that.
said we are waiting to host you at LV Prasad
I'll
Institute.
be more than happy to come anytime. You call me, I'll be there.
Yeah, sure. Great. Hi, Brajesh.
Hi, Dr. Raja.
In fact, till last week, I was thinking that this event is at LVP itself.
Oh, we could have done that probably. Yeah.
Maybe next time we'll do it in person.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try and see if I can share my screen. You let me know whether the screen is visible to us.
Oh, yes, it is.
Just give me 30 seconds. I will be back.
Yeah. I think we'll wait till he comes back, Dr. Raja, for half a minute or so.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Brijesh, I'm back. I'm here.
Yeah. So, welcome all to our event today. So, We are very grateful to all of you for joining us, and more so to RS for joining us to enlighten us on a topic about which we all are, I would say, very very less aware of than what we should be. And Aris, I'll read out some lines which Nilima has penned for you. So Aris is a seasoned professional with more than 20 years of multi-sectoral and cross-geographical work experiences. And this includes going across employee insurance, health benefits, workplace health promotion, and prevention design. So that's a lot, Aris. So I'm going to ask you about all of these one by one. He has also done his bachelor's from the Huddersfield University at UK and advanced management program from IIM Bangalore. So, Aris, it's great to have you over here. And without wasting time, I think all of us are wishing to listen to you. So, all yours.
Right. Thank you so much. And first of all, a big thank you to Dr. Raja and yourself for giving me an opportunity to share, the perspective of insurance, which is what you very rightly mentioned, is an important one that increasingly people should be aware of. Um, so, before I get started, I would like to share with everyone, which I keep repeating very often, and that is what is really, in a layman's term, what is insurance, right? So the history of insurance is, at least the recorded history of insurance goes back to 16th century, 17th century, and this is, in the city of London, which at that point in time was the center of world trade. And maritime trade was the way then. But those days were lacking the modern communications, modern facilities. So when the ships would go out at sea, these were largely, wind-powered vessels. Uh, they had no radar. They had no forewarning of any adverse weather conditions, etc. So when they would go out to sea, the rate of attrition used to be very high, right? And at that point in time, these attritions would mean that a lot of the traders who would be transporting goods to various parts of the world, different colonies, different would-be colonies, Newfoundlands, they would face tremendous losses, and to such extent that some of them would go out of business. So a bunch of these traders got together and said, how do we collectively make sure that we distribute the losses among all of us so that one person does not end up, bearing the burden of those losses? And the way we can distribute these losses among ourselves is by making sure that the trader who is going out to the sea, or whose vessel is going to the sea, pays an amount, a notional amount, which then, if the voyage is successful, continues to build into a kitty till such time an unforeseen and an unfortunate event happens, and then that kitty will be used to make do for the losses. So the fundamentals were laid out then, which means that insurance would never be for profit, right? Insurance would only be to make up for losses. So, and that institution basically then, the first agreement which was written by these group of traders happened over a tea stall. In Hyderabad, we would have called it cave, right? And that tea stall was called the Lloyd's. And today, Lloyd's happens to be one of the biggest reinsurers in the world. And if one goes to the National Institute of Insurance in Pune, you will actually see the table on which the original agreement was signed. So it's a matter of pride that specimen is in India, in Pune. But coming down to the modern times, if I were to explain what is insurance to a layman, right? It can be very easily put and explained by saying that insurance is nothing but an act where fortunate many end up paying for unfortunate few, right? It is very important for us to understand that for any program to be viable, for any long-term sustainability of a risk program like insurance, the fortunate manys have to be very large in number so that the kitty which they can dip into to pay for the unfortunate few never goes empty, right? So you can imagine a piggy bank where every day you put some money and you hope that at any point in time, any foreseen event, if there is a loss, you have enough in that piggy bank that you can use to make up for those losses. So that is the basic concept of how insurance works, right? Now, I will move my slides. Um, my slide basically is not very long because I have kept, Dr. Thakkar, I had taken your advice for a conversation after the slides as well. So I will spend over the next 25 to 30 minutes, on a formal presentation. And after that, we can take questions and we can, have a discussion as well. So, but this is the broadly, the content of my slides going forward. A little about the organization that I represent. Aon is an insurance aggregator or insurance broker. We are one of the world's leading insurance brokers. Today, around the world, we place over $75 billion of premiums on behalf of our clients with the insurance industry. Um, on commercial side, on health, that amount is about 180 billion, and our wealth solution actually has $4.1 trillion of assets under advisement. So this is a little about us. We are present in 120 countries today, and we have 50,000 colleagues around the world. So when it comes to understanding the business of insurance, I think I can very comfortably say that Aon is one of the pioneers who understand this business. I'm going to take you through how insurance industry has evolved in India, especially post-independence. Now, before independence, the insurance industry in India was quite chaotic. Number one is because there were very few regulations. Two, we were still colonized by the British, so a lot of UK-based companies were present in India. Also, there were a lot of Indian insurance companies that were working and they were in the market. But from a customer protection point of view, there was very little that customers had in terms of a recourse if anything went wrong, anything went bad, or if the insurer went out of business or went bankrupt, right? So this was understood by our founding fathers. And the first one of the in the early years of our independence in 1956, the government decided to collect all the companies, private companies that were in the business of life insurance, and created an organization called LIC. So this first round of nationalization that happened, and it was the crying need of that hour, because, like I said, that there were many players, but very little safeguards for consumers. Similarly, the non-life insurance. So, just to very quickly let all the audience know that insurances largely are of two types. You must have heard of life insurance, which basically is a policy where, in terms of demise of anyone, the survivors get a certain amount, a certain fixed amount, and that amount is fixed by way of, the sum assured that you pay for. So, irrespective of whatever happens, if an event of death is triggered, you will get that amount that was agreed upfront, right? Non-life insurance, which is also called general insurance, is essentially all other types of insurance. For example, motor insurance, burglary insurance, house insurance, liability insurance. These days, insuring your mobile phone or gadgets, shopkeepers insurance, and along with it, health insurance also is in India is part of the general insurance landscape. Right? Uh, we moved down as our economy matured, as the then Mr. Manmohan Singh opened India's economy. It was felt that the insurance sector needs to again evolve to be useful to the uh, in new industrial India, the new service economy led India, and therefore it was important to modernize the approach of how insurance was done. And essentially in 1993, a committee was set up to figure out what would be the new roadmap of insurance in India. Then it was felt that there is a need for a regulatory body that regulates the business of insurance in India, which is a non-governmental body, but a statutory body made by an act of parliament, which will regulate insurance industry. So today, insurance as a business is very tightly regulated by the regulator, and the regulator is called IRDAI, or Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. This body came into being in 1999 through an act of parliament. Uh, in the early 2000s, we saw tremendous amount of growth. This is the time when India was being hailed as the call center of the world. A lot of multinational companies, a lot of technology companies. If they were Indian companies, they were growing at great speed, at breakneck speed. If a lot of foreign companies were investing in India, we had companies like Microsoft and Google, Adobe, etc., which came and set up shops in India, and that essentially um, felt the need that this exploding consumer market cannot be serviced by a handful of government-owned insurance companies. And at that point in time, we had one government-owned life insurance company called LIC and four government-owned general insurance companies. And therefore, it was decided again by the policymakers that India should be opened up to foreign capital and foreign investments in the space of insurance. And therefore, in the early part of in the earlier part of 2007, 2008, government allowed 26% foreign investment, foreign direct investment in insurance sector, which subsequently got increased to 49%, and today we are at 100%. So any foreign organization can come and invest up to 100% in the insurance sector in India. This has actually led to an investment of close to about $10 billion. A direct investment of about $10 billion in Indian economy by the external capital that came in terms of private life insurers as well as private general insurance companies. And in some cases, there are also now standalone health insurance companies which fall within the purview of general insurance. Moving on, the government then also decided somewhere that it is easier being a payer rather than a provider. So therefore, the focus started shifting of various governments away from owning and developing in health infrastructure to basically paying for health for its citizens, especially citizens who came from the bottom of the pyramid. And that's when the trend of governments, various state governments and central governments introducing, schemes like the Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti schemes, etc., Atal Pension Yojana, health insurance, etc. And this trend continues, from 2017 onwards. So this is, quick slide of how insurance sector has evolved in India. Now, today, if we look at, how is this entire sector structured? So, as I mentioned, that the apex body that regulates this business in India is IRDAI. All insurers are supposed to report to IRDA and follow IRDA's guidelines. IRDA also ensures that it is responsible for orderly growth of insurance market in India. I will take a slight deviation here and I will explain why it is important for insurance companies to have orderly growth. There was also a time in India where the government decided the tariff of, or in the layman's word, I would say, the government decided the premiums for certain life insurance products. And the government did this to ensure that to chase profits or to make top line, insurance companies did not give unviable rates into the market, and therefore putting the entire economy of the country in jeopardy. It is very important for a strong economy to have a strong and resilient insurance sector as well. If I were to give you an example, if you imagine that a large infrastructure, for example, God forbid, Hyderabad airport, if something were to happen to it and it gets destroyed, um, we need to have enough capital, whether within the country or if we have reinsured these risks outside, to be able to pay this kind of risks, to be able to pay for these kind of calamities. Therefore, it is very important to ensure that insurance companies are prudent in terms of their business ethics. Today, as things stand now, from one government life insurance players, today we have 24, out of which LIC is the only public sector player. 23 private players are there. In the general insurance space, there are 6 public sector companies and 21 private sector companies. There are 2 specialized insurers, and these specialized insurers are largely in agricultural insurance and things like that. There are 7 standalone private health insurance companies, and there is 1 public reinsurance company, which is GIC, and 11 private reinsurance companies that operate in India. However, if you see the penetration of insurance within the country, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. If I were to look at last year, FY21, of the data that we have, the combined insurance penetration in India was 4.2%. And out of this 4.2%, life insurance was at 3.2%, and general insurance, all lines of general insurance, was only at 1%. So please bear in mind that this 1% also includes other lines of general insurance, such as motor, burglary, fire, earthquake, liabilities, right? So you can well imagine how small the portion of health insurance is in this larger scheme of things. And therefore, it is important for us to realize that there is a lot of ground that needs to be covered to popularize insurance as a viable risk prevention strategy. Today, when we talk about the low penetration, if we ask this question, there are many reasons and there are many answers that we will get. I think some of those could be around customer mindset, and this is a very real issue. A lot of people today feel that it is useless to buy insurance. It is something that you pay for and you never end up utilizing, so it's money wasted. But to more knowledgeable people, we would say that anything can happen at any point in time because nobody can forecast the future. If by paying a certain small amount, you can prevent going bankrupt, or you can prevent, selling your family wealth off or your family jewelry in case of, any, for example, hospitalization. You can sleep peacefully. So therefore, don't look at buying insurance product as if you were buying, a car or a house where in return for the money that you give, you get something back. What you get is the peace of mind, and that itself is worth any sort of physical asset that you may buy in exchange for money. Then the other aspect is low consumer awareness. Um, and here, one, of course, is that we have a large section of population that is, that does not have access to good education, who may not be intellectually that well versed to understand the concept of insurance. Um, and therefore, they are scared to, or they don't even know that something like this exists. A lot of our young millennials, young people, young professionals feel that they are very healthy. They are in their 20s. They have just gotten their jobs. They are very healthy. Nothing will happen to them. The world is at their feet. So maybe they don't need to buy insurance. And sometimes at that age, there are other priorities in life. So therefore, old age, health, bad health, hospitalization, these are not things that typically, cross their minds. Uh, Something related to this is again, which the insurance industry is slightly responsible for, is the concept of mis-selling. Now, I alluded to the fact that a large number of our population is not financially savvy. And they are quite vulnerable to being sold products that they may not need, products that they cannot use, products that don't serve their requirement. And in those cases, what happens is that that money is gone, and when the time comes, you are not really able to use that product, because somewhere either your advisor did not advise you too well, deliberately did not advise you, or was careless and left out important aspects of the product feature, right? Or you trusted somebody else, and you, without looking at the product features, you bought something on someone's word. So that is a very large problem. And what happens is that it also has a spillover effect when people actually say, "Oh, I bought insurance, but what is the point? When I needed it, I never got any use out of it." And when others hear it, they tend to sort of think that this is very common in insurance sector, so better stay away. Third is the pricing of the product. Now, this product pricing is something that uh, is a big elephant in the room, and Dr. Raja and I have had multiple conversations around how we can make, what are the steps that can be done to make the pricing of insurance products affordable to the masses. Now, my only submission there is that uh, this is a very difficult animal to tame, and this will only be possible if the penetration of insurance reaches, to a level which is much higher than what it is today. If you recall my earlier example of a piggy bank, the piggy bank needs to grow. If the piggy bank will grow, the pricing of risk will automatically come down, right? If I know that I have a large chunk of, I don't even have a piggy bank right now, I probably have a storeroom which is full of cash, then I will be able to assume risk at lower rates. So that is what we need to do, number one. Number two, we need to continue to strive to avoid something called, that we call in insurance, anti-selection. Now, what is anti-selection? Anti-selection is, in insurance industry, is considered something very bad, which is essentially when, as a consumer, I know that I will be going for a surgery in the next 3 or 4 months. I go and purchase insurance only then. By doing that, what happens is that the risk pool, which ideally should be healthy, it gets skewed towards unhealthy people. And therefore, there are more unfortunates than the fortunates in the pool. So the idea is that if we are able to increase our insurance penetration, the base number of people will increase, and hopefully more number of fortunate manys will continue to get added, which will then comfortably pay for the unfortunate few, in a pricing range that is affordable to masses. Unfortunately, I think somewhere, and the industry is taking this up with the government wherever it can, the impact of the new taxation system and the GST has also made insurance premiums at least 18% more uh, uh, expensive than they ought to be. I think, the governments need to realize that insurance is an essential product. Insurance is as essential as hospitalization is, right? Because if somebody gets hospitalized, those bills are not. I mean, you don't levy GST there, but insurance is equally important because those doctors have to be paid. So therefore, hospitals will have to raise bills, and somebody has to pay those bills, right? In this case, if the person is insured, the insurance company pays the bill. But if the premium that the customer is paying has GST, that adds that 18% burden, which is quite a lot. So, as industry, we are continuously talking to the government. Every budget, we look at, if the government can provide some relief to policyholders by reducing the GST. But that is still something that, we will have to wait and watch. Now, like I mentioned, that there are changes that continues to happen all the time. Nobody had assumed that COVID pandemic is going to hit the world so badly 3 years ago. Nobody would have imagined 4 years ago that something like this would happen. Our society also continues to evolve and change. Our perceptions also continue to evolve and change. And therefore, the insurance industry is also trying its best to adapt to change and embrace change as much as possible. Now, that including newer therapies, which a few years ago were not included, but today are included. The government, uh, you know, came up with the Mental Health Act in 2017. Taking a cue from there, IRDA, our regulator, then went out and instructed all the insurance companies to include mental health within their insurance purview. And then, of course, there have been other regulatory changes as well. So, when we talk about health insurance, you could be two types of health insurance consumer. Either you could be a standalone health insurance buyer, standalone policy holder, uh, which we called retail policy, or you could be a part of a group. For example, you could be working for an organization, and the organization has a group-owned uh, insurance cover, and you're a member of that. You're a member of that group. So, like for example, most organizations that offer health insurance today, they are group-owned health insurance covers. You are eligible to enjoy the benefit of that particular insurance only for as long as you are uh, employed with that employer. If you change jobs to a different employer, depending on what program they have, what sum assured they have, that would change. Retail policy, since you own it yourself, that's your own personal policy. That stays irrespective of your employment situation or whether you're a part of a group or not. However, there are some differences. Uh, since companies buy in group, in bulk, they have a better leverage with the insurer to make the insurance program a little more easy for the user. Whereas retail programs, since an individual does not have that kind of leverage with the insurance company, they are offered standard insurance products, which may have waiting period or certain exclusions, certain co-pays, etc. built into that. Now, coming to the question of how physicians, um, the the diagnostics and the insurance company, how this entire ecosystem can come together to make sure that the end customer, end user, has a positive experience. And by positive experience, I would mean in this context, in the context of our discussion, how they are more likely to get reimbursed for their claims. If you if you recall my previous uh, slide, where I discussed about um, the importance of understanding the policy well. So the first step, or mis-selling, sorry. So the first step essentially begins with the uh, consumer themselves. They need to ensure that they understand the product that they are buying themselves. The insurance contract follows a philosophy which in Latin is called caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. The caveat emptor uh, policy is that it is incumbent on the buyer to do all the due diligence before accepting a contract. And health policy, insurance policy is essentially nothing but a contract, right, between the payer, which is the insurance company, and the policyholder, who's the participant. Uh, and in this case, legally, it is incumbent on the buyer to ensure that they do all the necessary due diligence before they get into that contract. So that is number one. Number two, uh, when the patient comes, the insured person comes to the hospital or comes to a treating doctor, and the treatment happens, um, it, it will help the cause of the patient if one the diagnostics aspect, they follow standardized clinical protocols. The physicians and the healthcare providers are able to educate the patient on insurance coverage. uh, they counsel the patient and also provide guidance on what kind of documentation they would be requiring, because this is something that happens day in and day out at a hospital. But for the patient, he may or she may be coming for the first time and may not be that well versed with the documentation. Most hospitals these days have a TPA desk, but it is very important to provide the detailed breakup of the bill to the insurance company, so that any time wasting activity can be minimized, where back and forth clarification questions can be avoided. Uh, from a treatment point of view, again, it really helps if the patient is provided with detailed consultation sheet along with the history covering any details about any pre-existing illness that may happen, right? In some cases, prescription for oral chemomedicines wherever required, along with dosages and prognosis are required. And also to bear in mind that all the treatment methodologies and drugs are approved, and no unapproved therapies are being tried. Uh, if I were to talk about how a claim process actually works, this is the flow, right? This is an 8-step uh, process in which the claim process works. At every step, uh, it is always advisable to give as much information as possible and as clearly as possible to ensure that the claim has best chance to go through. Here are some of the suggested checklists, right? Which or claims document checklists, which are usually asked for from a patient for the purpose of admitting and paying the claims. So it is signed claim form. It could be all prescriptions in original. all original doctor consultation payments, receipts, as well as sign and seal, which are signed and sealed, original medicine bills with sign and seal, original investigation reports with doctor's prescription in original, follow-up advice or letter for line of treatment from doctor, and breakup details of pharmacy items, materials, investigation, consumables, etc., and so on and so forth. Now, there may be instances, and there are instances, where claims can get rejected. Our regulator has actually gone ahead and ensured that there are steps that are available to a aggrieved party to approach and get that resolved. So, in our experience, we have seen that when it comes to corporate insurance, the probability of reimbursement is fairly high because largely the corporates prefer cashless mode of payment. Individual insurance policies, since there is no large organization fighting your case and you are on your own, still there is a very robust mechanism to ensure how you deal with claim rejections. If your claim is rejected, then one should immediately ask the insurance company the reason for rejection in writing and also ask for which clause under which the claim has been denied. We can raise the concern against against the company under various forums that are available. I will give that list separately if somebody is interested. But there's a very well set mechanism. If within a certain date insurance company does not respond, you can go to the you can go to the insurance ombudsperson. If you are not satisfied with the insurance ombudsperson, you can go to IRDA. If you are not satisfied with that, the court of law in India is always there. However, litigation is expensive, it is time consuming, and should ideally be used only as a last resort. So this essentially brings an end to my very brief summary of the insurance sector in India. I hope that this simple 13 slider has been of use to you, and I will stop sharing my screen here and I will be open to any questions that the participants may have.
So many thanks, Aris, and many thanks for being on time also. We always say that in healthcare, no, there is an asymmetry of information between the patients and the doctors. So I just now I realize there's such asymmetry of information between the insurance providers, the patients, and the insurance providers and the doctors also. And somewhere you really clicked us all on into it, especially with that table present in Pune. So with that said, I think I will first take the questions which are there on the chat box. So Dr. Raja is asking, Dr. Raja, you can actually unmute and ask Aris.
Yeah, thanks, Aris, for that very nice presentation. I had a few questions. Maybe start with the second one, probably the difference between retail insurance and corporate insurance. Quite a few differences. Why can't we, try to, by way of, let's say, adjusting the premium itself, but reduce the rejections for retail customers? And I see also there is a difference in the cooling off period, in the waiting period for various conditions. So why are there so many differences between corporate and retail insurance?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So one is when the definition of a group product is that it needs to have a minimum of 100 participants. which means that the distribution cost, the selling cost per unit comes down dramatically, and the corpus of premiums that is collected is much higher. So that's the first uh, reason why there is a lot more flexibility given to group medical programs than retail programs. Now, even from an underwriting perspective, uh, since corporates maintain, a lot more records of their employees and their health statistics, a lot more longitudinal data is available to the underwriter to look at, the patient history for a number of years, because, right now most organizations have had, 15, 20 years of health insurance that they've done for their organization. So underwriters have a view to that risk profile as well, and therefore better risk pricing can be done. Um, Unlike a retail person like me, the insurance company can only rely on what I am telling them. And if there is a health check required, what little they can get from the details they can get from the health check. So, therefore, and of course, the fact that selling individual insurance to me is more expensive from a cost perspective to an insurance company. So, therefore, the retail products tend to be more straitjacketed, and they. However, again, all retail products have to be signed as products and approved as products by IRDA. So, so that is essentially the reason why um, buying a bulk product gives you a little more flexibility, as a buyer. But again, please note that even in group health insurance product, the individual participant does not have the flexibility. He is still dependent on what their head of HR or head of organization will decide as sum assured, or will decide as copay, or will decide as, various elements of the insurance program. How much is maternity paid for? Should we have, a MAP therapy, for example, included in our organization's health program or not? But a retail person will get a straight jacket policy which has been approved by RDA, and therefore, you can't really play around with the prices. But in group insurance, because it is very customizable for each company, the prices can go up and they can come down as well.
Yeah, thanks. I think we can go around to the other questions from other participants. If time permits, I can take other questions.
Yes. So, Mr. Sushant is asking that are there formalized processes and checks in place to ensure reimbursement of approved therapies only?
Or are there any set processes for reimbursement of approved therapies? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yes. The answer is yes. Not just all approved. So, for example, if the insurance document, the insurance wording includes that certain thing, certain treatment, certain line of treatment, certain therapy is payable, then it is payable.
So, Mr. Sushant has raised his hand. I'm asking you to unmute. You can actually say it, Sushant.
Thank you. Hi, Aris, Sushant this side.
Hi, Sushant.
Hi, just to give you the background, I think my question more was with the regular advancements in medical therapies, how do you sink in to make sure that only approved products are essentially reimbursed at the end of the day? I understand, like, in many cases, we see some of these products which are not approved for that specific indication may get reimbursed. So, and it's dynamic, right? Because you have new innovative therapies coming in. So how do you make sure that that is in sync and you minimize the reimbursement of non-approved therapies?
Sushant, it's a very good question, and it is the honest answer is that it is still work in progress. For example, at least in in my organization also, we don't do it. I mean, we don't do it as much as we would like to do it. But for example, we all know that at least in the group insurance programs, the and even in the retail for that matter, the claim is first reviewed by the third party administrator, and therefore it really the third party administrator becomes a very useful person in this context, because his or her lack of knowledge or his knowledge can make a difference between something wrong which gets paid or something right which does not get paid. So we are investing in a lot of, especially newer therapies. Um, but there is definitely, we are investing a lot in training these third party administrator and intermediaries. But this is, at least till now, it's a catch up game. And, we continuously need to keep working at it to ensure that no one is denied a rightful claim, right? Especially around modern therapies. And also importantly, no unapproved therapy then gets paid as well.
So somewhere I think this answers the first question that Raja was also asking you about the newer therapies. So before I take up the next question, Aris, I wanted to ask one from my own side. I just can't stop myself now. So it is that while we keep on talking about new therapies, how do you weigh in research which is coming from all over the world, but not from India? And how do you then decide what to do about the diseases which have been there for such a long time? For example, chronic diseases like diabetes, how to make things easier? And what kind of research do you expect from us? Lot many of us attending this webinar today are actually researchers, and we would like to know how we can make all this process better.
Yeah, so I think I was reading a newspaper, I was reading a news article today where Mr. Narayan Murthy actually was lamenting that there isn't enough original research that is happening, in India. I'm sure if we are able to do credible research, showing clear economic gains, economic viability, looking at how a certain therapy is improving dailies, uh, you know and having a forum to convey this to the insurance industry, then definitely we can uh, you know influence the industry to move towards a more, I would say, open view of product planning, product design. We are trying to do something parallelly. I think Sushant here knows about it, on another forum of pharma producers. We are trying to get now maybe use that as a forum to have a regular interface with the industry, which so far I think has been there in fits and starts, but a more robust platform where there's an ongoing dialogue between the industry, between the pharma industry, between the hospital, the healthcare providers, as well as insurance industries. We should, in the long run, address a lot of these issues.
True, thanks. So the second thing that I wanted to ask, see, I realized that low penetration is perhaps the big issue with us. So how can we increase this penetration? And generally, one would say that knowledge attitude is bad towards the buyer side. So this obviously needs to be tackled. So do you people actually do some KAP studies kind of a thing to actually improve that? And I also understand that our government provides income tax reliefs in some senses by going towards LIC, etc. So does that include private insurances also, or can these kind of things be more advocated?
Yeah, yeah. So, if you recall, I don't know, in this budget, the government came up with two, the old system of salary and the new system of salary. The old system of salary is where you can continue to claim deductions under ATC for various insurance products. And the new, the new structure is where you don't actually claim any deductions, and government gives you up to 7 lakhs tax free, as income. You can have it tax free. And this raised a lot of hue and cry because, the industry felt that the government is moving away from the old structure to new structure. Therefore, that will be another impediment for the growth of insurance industry. But my personal view is that one should never buy insurance for two things. One, insurance is not a tax saving mechanism, right? Okay, if you're able to save taxes, well and good. It's additional money in your pocket. But the primary reason for buying insurance, which we see, usually even the insurance industry, we start doing a lot of television ad in the month of February and January, because we know 31st March is coming. So, you quickly buy insurance and you can save some taxes. But that should never be the case in the first place. Second, you should never buy insurance for investment. And a lot of our parents have actually taught us that the moment you get your first job, buy one endowment policy from LIC, right? Um, Again, insurance is very clearly a risk management product, right? You buy insurance for peace of mind. You don't buy insurance for money back. You don't buy insurance for saving taxes. You should buy insurance for peace of mind that tomorrow, for example, if I am gone, I will not leave my family in a lurch. I will leave my family with a corpus of money that they can use to, stand on their own feet in due course of time. That is life insurance, right? If if I or my family member gets affected by a disease and I get hospitalized, right? I don't spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees, selling my wife's jewelry or my family land. But if I'm insured, the insurer will pay for this unforeseen event, right? So it's a risk management product. It is not a consumable product that you go and buy a Starbucks coffee and you pay 300 rupees, but you get the sensation of having that coffee. Don't think of it like that.
Yeah, I think I've taken my what should I say, quota of time. So I'll go to Dr. Raja's question, which is that about preventive health check coverage under insurance. So it can
Yes,
reduce higher claims. So
yes,
what are
yes.
your thoughts?
Yes, it is happening. It is very popular and it is increasingly getting more and more popular. In fact, we just did a wellness survey. We just closed the survey and we are looking at the results. Close to 40 to 50% organizations that we surveyed are now including annual health check as a part of within a part of their insurance program, either through the OPD insurance or through the main insurance. So that is something, a very great sign that we are seeing, happen right now, that companies are beginning to realize that annual health check is an important preventive strategy.
So is it, if I can add on, is it only for corporate and group insurance that this preventive checkups are? Well, what about
No,
retail?
so even a lot of private is including government. Actually, I wouldn't make a distinction here, but a lot of insurance companies provide this benefit even to the retail customers. For example, my own personal policy, which is with a private player, allows me one family health checkup for every 2 years of claim-free years. So if I have two claim-free years, the insurer basically will give me vouchers for annual health checkup for me and my family.
Okay, thank you.
So the next question I think was about training for TPA. So is there somebody who can train us ophthalmologist or allied personnel?
So essentially, we in the past have, facilitated training. Sushant is here; he would know it well. For the TPAs, for the biggest TPAs actually, who control almost 90-80% of the uh, the claims processed, at least for our clients. Um, and it is the same group of people. There isn't any particular organization who is doing it, but I feel that, it is good for the industry and industry players like us to sort of invest in these trainings and make sure that they are happening on an ongoing basis?
So next question is actually directly for you, Aris. Can you please share the presentation slides? So we shall share the link soon on the chat box, and I think everybody can
Yes,
take it.
yes, I can share the presentation slide. I'll send it over to you, Dr. Thakur, and you can.
Yeah, there is actually a link we'll put on the chat box soon, Aris. So what are the key messages for one message for health provider and one message for the health seeker vis-a-vis health insurance?
I would ask two things from health providers. One is uh, make sure that you continue to evangelize the need for health insurance to all your patients, not just your patients, but also their dependents. So that you see, in our culture, and rightfully so, people consider doctors as gods, right? And if they are going to listen to anyone in this entire ecosystem, they are most likely and more likely to listen to the doctor most. Uh, I would say they would like to listen to me last, right? So that is one. The other big thing that I want from the healthcare providers is uh, make sure that the documentation is as lucid and as detailed as possible, so that it helps the cause of the patient at the end. And Dr. Thakur, what was the second
For the health seeker.
for the health seeker? Yeah, for the health seeker, please ensure that you know you don't throw away your family wealth. You don't throw away your life savings, because you were lazy to buy insurance. Number one. Number two, once you've decided to buy health insurance, please make sure that you read the fine print yourself. And do not trust anyone, including the person who's selling you the product, because obviously there is a conflict of interest. People would want to sell you stuff because they get compensated for it, they get their jobs depend on it. Have it vetted by some third knowledgeable person to know what you're getting into, right? Please talk to experts. The seller may not be the expert, by the way, but find out from someone else. Talk to your healthcare provider and figure out, what you are getting into. It's very important to be a knowledgeable consumer. And final health seeker is take care of your health.
So we are all health seekers and we can all be health providers if we ask people to take insurance, I suppose. Somewhere
Correct.
that is true. And I think it's 5 p.m. Aris. While I think I can stop you for a long time. I have 10 or 11 more questions that I could have asked. But I'll just say one thing, that this was probably another table and another chai. Maybe not that back, but maybe a virtual one. And the other thing is that you have ensured us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you. And I'm sorry I could not take all the questions, but if those questions could be sent to me, I could make an attempt to answer them offline.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aris.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You can stop the recording now.
Analysis.
You can stop the recording, please. This is